God, it's a mess back there. Huh. What's going on, guys? Teen Mechanic here. Today is the day that we install the amplifier. I'm starting my videos this video a lot later than I normally would. It's kind of gloomy, kind of windy, and we're going to run out of daylight, so we kind of got to do it fast. Again, there's wind noise, so I apologize if you hear any. But today is the day that this is going to be wired up. So if you didn't catch last video, which I highly recommend you go watch it, the video before last was 47 minutes, so I did it right last time, and I only made it something above 13 minutes, so not long. But anyway, so what we did is we wired in those deck lid speakers, as you can hopefully see right there. There's one, and there's the other. So those are all wired in. They're sounding good. There's a lot of bass to them. And we also ran, well, actually, I didn't show you that, but we ran that trigger wire there, and we also ran those RCA cables. I didn't show you the RCA cables because it's exactly the same as running the trigger wire, running the speaker wire, and running the power wire, and everything else that we did. So I didn't bother showing you. It's the same thing. Just ran it through under the sill plates and to the head unit, and it's very simple. So it's a mess back here, so I apologize about that, but it's the general, it's generally the same thing. Right back there are the wires from the amp wiring kit. I had to open the amp wiring kit, or the amp kit, just to get the trigger wire and some speaker wire out, but that's no big deal. Now we'll go ahead and kind of break down what we have to do here. Alright, so to very quickly break it down, in an amp kit you always get a very good, well, depending on the amp kit you got, I got a brand name Stinger, Stinger is the brand, but I got a brand name amp kit, it just happens to be Stinger, but I don't, and by brand name I mean like well known, I don't recommend you go out on go on Amazon and buy the cheapest possible 6 or 8 gauge wire amp kit that you can find, because oftentimes I've seen it where they just melt inside of a car, they ground, they destroy the amp, and worst case scenario, they burn your car down, which is just like, knock on wood, like that is something that is just such a terrible, terrible thing to think about. But anyway, as you can see here, this here is the power wire. So what's special about this, it comes with a very short 8 gauge. I got an 8 gauge because that sub is 4 ohms, and I'm only running, I believe, 740-ish watts on a well, it runs 740 watts at 4 ohms, so I only needed 8 gauge. But if you're running a full 2 ohm sub at full power all the time, you're gonna need at least 4 gauge, if not 2 gauge. But here is the ground wire. That's pretty short. That stays in the trunk. But this here is the amp wire, amp power wire. So as you can see here, it comes with a built-in inline fuse right there, and that right there is going to prevent any catastrophic issues, like if we were to run the amp and something were to ground, it would pop the fuse and hopefully save everything on the other side of the line. So as you can see, this thing comes with a braided wire cover, just to protect the wire. Now, I wasn't able to get wiring loom from the last video, actually video before last you saw me run the wires. I wasn't able to get wiring loom, so I'm just going to put electrical tape around it and make sure it's free from anything that could chafe, and then I will get wiring loom as soon as I can. But what we're going to do is go ahead, wire this up to the battery right here with that eyelet. Ground wire is the exact same thing with that eyelet, except we're going to be mounting that probably to right there where there's a body ground. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get started here. Actually, before we do, I'll show you the amp. So it comes with its instructions. There's some replacement fuses, a remote control wire, and a manual and everything in there that you might need. And here's the amp. As you can see, it's a Hertz amp. It's an HCP 1DK. It's a pretty good amp, actually. I've seen them even go for $700. I got this one for Christmas, actually, but it was, I think it was only $300, and it was on sale. So this is a very good amplifier. We'll go over what exactly the controls do here. So as you can see, there's lots of stuff on this side, and you might not know what any of that does. This here is going to come from your radio. If you saw that white thing, it's snowing right now. But this is going to come from your radio. That's going to be the input, what's going to send the sound signals. This here, I believe, is, I forget, I don't know, I think high in. I'm not exactly sure what this does or what it is, or I didn't read up on that. But then you have all of your controls here. You've got your level, your fade, blah, blah, blah. You've got your gain and all that stuff. If you have an amp with gain, leave the gain where it is. Don't mess with the gain. if it's already preset. If it's not, you might have to Google on where to set it to, depending on your setup. But yeah, the gain is something that you don't usually want to mess with. So on this side here, you can see this is where you actually get your standard power from. You have your ground, your 12-volt power wire, and you also have your trigger wire. It says REM above it. Now that is going to be your remote trigger wire. That's why it's REM, stands for remote. So you can see there are 3 fuses here. If something goes wrong with the amp itself, inside the amp, or you get too much power to the amp, whatever, one of these fuses should blow. They're all 30 amps. And then here you have your outputs. This here's a 2-channel amp for your subs, so you have positive, negative, if you want to run 2 subs. In this case, I'm only running 1, so it's totally fine just to use one of those channels. So now that we've gone over what the amp does and all of the contents, the subwoofer is very simple, positive and negative. That's it. That's all you need to know about that. But now, we'll go to the engine bay and we'll start running wire. Alright guys, so here we are inside the engine bay here, and first thing that we're going to do is disconnect this negative terminal. We don't want any power going through anything when we run an amp. The reason we remove the negative, of course, is because if it's a ground, if it touches a ground, it's grounding the ground. It really doesn't matter. If you remove the positive and it touches metal, sparks, and you could ground the entire electrical system and short things and ruin things and blow things up. So you do that before you do anything else. Another amazing tip that I have to state right now is that when you're running your amp power wire, this right here, you want to run it. The reason I'm running it on this side, the reason I ran the remote trigger wire on this side of the car and the sound wires on that side of the car is because if you run your speaker wire and your power wire right beside each other, the buzz, if you go listen to a transformer box or power lines, you'll hear that buzzing noise. That's exactly what happens. It's called interference. And if you run power wires right next to speaker wires, you'll get power noise in your sound when you're listening to the stereo. So you don't want to run those 2 wires right next to each other. So with that out of the way, our next order of business is to go ahead and figure out a way to mount this to the battery. So what I love about this kit is it comes with eyelets in a bag, and it also comes with this eyelet right here that is already pre-installed with a heat shrink. So that's very nice. But what we're going to do is go ahead, remove this nut and this washer, and go ahead and mount it right with this eyelet here, which is actually the eyelet for the stereo that I installed last video. But this here is going to be right next to it, and then that is our power wire. The next thing is this fuse here. We have to figure out where to mount this. This isn't actually something that's super important to have mounted like in a very important spot. You can just leave it unmounted if you want. If you want to make things fit and finish really nice, then you should mount it somewhere. Alright, so it actually is really snowing now, which is actually frustrating because it was a very beautiful day today. I even pressure washed the driveway. But anyway, aside from that, now what we'll do is this is a 1/2 inch wrench. I didn't feel like getting my ratchet together, so I'm just using a wrench. But what we're going to do is undo this nut here for the battery terminal. Pretty simple. Now, usually you wouldn't take this off if you were just removing the terminal. But in this case, I'm actually trying to mount something on the stud. Alright, so now with this off here and this washer off, we can take this eyelet and just slide it on. That's it. That's all there is to it. Nothing fancy with this. Make sure that it's on there well enough at least to avoid touching any surfaces it shouldn't or moving too much when you drive. Alright, so now we have it completely mounted. The only thing that I'm going to do here is just tighten this up real quick just to prevent it from slipping. Now it's not super tight yet because we do need to move it around a little, but what we'll do is we'll get some wiring loom. I don't have any on hand right now, which is very frustrating even just for demonstration purposes, but next time we're back, maybe not next time, whenever I can, I'll get some wiring loom. But for now, what I'll do, since it's protected already, we'll just stick it underneath the fender, kinda, just to make sure that it's out of harm's way. But now that that's all mounted, what I love about this is this fuse already comes pre-assembled, and it's in a weather-tight casing, so that's really nice. But sometimes you actually do have to put them together. There's lots of videos out there on that, but the gist of it is this just unscrews like this, and this is an inline fuse. And when I say inline, I mean, yes, this is technically an inline fuse, that's the style of it, but this fuse here has wingtips on either end. It's not a what's called a blade fuse, which you would see normally in your engine. This car's too old to have blade fuses, but a blade fuse is, for example, inside this inline fuse here, this right here is a blade fuse. So that's what you're used to seeing as a blade fuse. Now, that's not the kind of fuse that we have in this. So it is a little unorthodox, but if it's pre-assembled, you really have nothing to worry about. Alright guys, so we're kind of going to leave it just dangling around for now. We don't want to put anything in its final place because we do have to move it around quite a bit. But now the next thing that we have to do is get through the firewall somehow. So last time I ran our power wire through a grommet in the firewall, and it mounted up very well. But in this case, I don't think we're actually going to have a spot that's going to suffice, so we might actually have to drill through the firewall. Now, if that's the case, this actually comes with a grommet that perfectly fits this 8-gauge wire. So what I'm going to do is go grab a drill bit, find a good spot to drill, use a punch to get that center hole, and just drill right through. Use some WD-40 to lubricate the drill bit, but then we'll install the grommet and run the wire right through. Alright guys, now to drill, it's pretty simple. So get a drill and just get a punch, and then hold it against it and indent it so that your bit doesn't skip around. Now make sure when you're drilling through the firewall that there's no wires or plumbing or HVAC plumbing on the other side, because if you drill through that, obviously it isn't good. So just make sure that you find the exact right spot. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and drill through the firewall now. Alright guys, sorry to skip this far ahead, but we are now wired from the battery down under the fender and through the firewall. Now we're through the firewall because unfortunately the punch did more of the drilling than the drill, because unfortunately what happened is the drill was skipping around too much because I couldn't get the right angle, so I ended up punching a hole through the firewall with the punch instead of the drill. But now we are through. This loom, the heat shrink actually was really loose and kind of came off, but that heat shrink wasn't really all that important because it wasn't to keep water out. It was just to kind of keep this loom on, this braided loom. But it's actually good that it came off because I could get more of the wire through the firewall than I could with the heat shrink on. But that's no big deal. Now we're through the firewall, so now we'll move to the inside of the car and get it routed to the trunk. Alrighty then guys, so it's actually the next day, and I actually edited the first portion of that video that you just watched, and I realized that it was actually relatively mediocre. There were quite a few audio issues. My microphone came detached from my phone, and you were hearing audio straight out of my phone, so there was no microphone or wind muff to keep all that noise out, so it was kind of mediocre, but just thought I'd get that out of the way. But anyway, we're back again today with a working microphone, and shouldn't have any more technical difficulties, you know, we'll hope. But anyway, I've started to run the wire underneath this carpet, so I have it actually relatively well situated. So if you go ahead and look, we have it coming through the firewall just past there, and then I have it running there where you see that thick blue cable, running along here with the original factory cables underneath their hold downs and all that stuff. So it's going through the carpet, through the sill plate. Now this is the side that we ran our trigger wire on, and we ran our speaker wire on the other side of the car because, like I said, we don't want to get noise in our sound, and I mean like power noise, that buzzing. So I also have it running under this carpet here, held down just right where it's supposed to be, and it's running along through under the seat, kind of up there through the deck lid, and then we also have it pretty much completely routed into the trunk. Actually, scratch that, completely routed into the trunk. So here's the amplifier. We have our power wire coming pretty much right to it. This isn't where it's going, but it's fully routed into the trunk. All we have to do is strip it. I also took the liberty of mounting that ground wire right there. As you can see, it is mounted and it's running across. I have a feeling that the amp is going to go up there somewhere. So we have everything completely run into the trunk. It's ready for the amp to be connected. We have the RCA cables, the trigger wire, and the power wire, and we're pretty much completely ready to do it. So let's go ahead and mount up this amplifier. All right, so here I am inside of the trunk, which is kind of an odd sight, but you know, you got to do what you got to do when you're working on your car. It's not that uncommon to do some things that look very strange to normal people. Anyway, aside from that, here's the amplifier, here's the power wire, here's the ground wire, here's the trigger wire. So, and here are the RCA cables. So we're completely wired in, we're ready to go. The only extra tool that you're going to need are Allen keys. Most people have Allen keys. They're not a specialty tool or anything. And if you don't have them, they're super easy to get at in Canada, Canadian Tire. And if not in Canada, you know, Harbor Freight. I mean, anywhere has them. I mean, you could probably go to really any store. Even a gas station I saw once has them. So Allen keys are easy to get. But that's not the point of this video. It's pretty easy. So I'm just going to take off these covers here. These are meant to come off. So they're just two little screws right here on either side that just come off like this. As you can see here, you got to be pretty careful. Make sure that they don't strip. Okay guys, so now with both covers off, we're pretty much ready to go. So what I'm going to do with the battery disconnected, again, I just have to mention that, I'm going to use this knife to go ahead and strip this power wire. So unfortunately, I don't have strippers that will actually strip this wire because it's so thick. But we don't need much. We don't need to strip a whole lot off because these aren't all that deep. So just make sure that you have just enough to reach inside of the connector there. So I'm just going to press against it here. Make sure I'm doing it all in the same line here. Don't remove any strands if you can help it. There you have it. Stripped just like that. Very simple. Only one strand really fell off and I see it. So that's pretty simple. So now we've got one stripped. Oh, no, more strands fell off, but that's no big deal. We'll just go ahead and twist that up. You don't want a whole lot of strands to fall off because it could cause a weak spot, but at the very end like this, it's not the end of the world. So I'm just going to leave it. Not very many strands fell off. It looked like a lot more than it was, but I can see them all. There's not very many. So we have one stripped. Now we'll go ahead and do the ground. Okay guys, so we have both wires stripped now completely. We'll go ahead and put this knife away. And now it's ready to be connected to the amp. So the only wire left to strip now is this remote trigger wire. Now you don't actually really need to do this with a knife. In fact, don't. Use wire strippers, which I forgot inside, so I'm going to have to go get those. Alright guys, so every single wire here that needs to be stripped is. Now we also have our RCA cables, and now it's time to connect them up to the amp, which is really nice to do. So we'll grab the correct Allen key here, go ahead and unscrew it. Not very much, we just need enough so that the wire can poke in there. So just like that is fine. Now we'll take our positive, put it in the plus 12 volt, the positive there. You don't want to put this in the negative, obviously. That goes without saying. Screw that in there so it won't come out and it's nice and tight. Now we're going to take our ground wire, stick it right in there. It says GND on it. Very hard to mistake it for anything else. Alright, so that's all in there. Now the only thing left to do is hook up this remote wire. So let's do that now. The only difference is it's quite... Actually, I'm going to go ahead and take this ground wire out just because it's the shortest, so it should be done last. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and hook up this remote wire. Alright guys, everything on this side is completely connected with the exception of the speaker. Now, all we're going to do is go ahead and plug in the RCA. Just like that. Now that's connected. So this amp is completely ready to go. Now all we got to do is connect the other end of the RCA cables to the radio head unit. It's just white and red, so same connectors there. Super easy to do. I don't need to show you that. Then we'll hook up the speakers and then try it out. Alrighty then guys, so everything is completely connected. Everything is wired in. It looks pretty bad right now with the wire kind of dangling everywhere, but nothing is touching grounds or anything like that. It's all safe. Everything is connected. It's connected to the sub. Now, the more I think about it, I think I'm going to take this out, but it still makes a good video. I mean, that sub is just so, in my opinion, it's horrendously ugly. I don't like it. I don't like the look of a sub in the back of a car, but yeah, I might take it out. But anyway, regardless of that, it's time to now try it out. I'm going to go connect the battery and turn on the radio, and we'll see what happens. It's just going to be awesome. Guys, everything is now completely connected. Let's see if it works. It's working. It's completely working. Okay, that's awesome. You can't really hear it. Let's see if I can help. I'm not really sure how well you can hear it or make it out, but the sub is completely working. And that amp works. So now I'm going to mess with the levels and see how loud we can make it. Alright guys, I messed with the level a little bit and some of the boosts, and it can get real loud. I'm not going to get it real loud, but this is awesome. I don't want to get any copyright strikes, but I mean that's really cool. I'm glad it works. That's really awesome. I don't know. It's a really cool feeling to wire something into your car and have everything work exactly perfectly. I'm gonna go turn the key off right now, and then we'll do the outro. All right, guys. Well, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really do. If you did, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. But let me know how I can improve in the comment section below, and let me know what you want to see with this thing. Let me know if I should leave the sub in or if I should take it out. I'm kind of leaning towards taking it out, but it does sound pretty cool. I like having it there, but I don't know. I'm kind of torn. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, because I am interested to know. But other than that, let me know what else you want to see. I have a couple vehicles to work on here. This one, I've had quite a few videos in a row. And I mean, I don't know, I've got a 73 Cadillac Eldorado. If you haven't seen that, go check out the video where I introduced it and tried to get it started in minus 38-degree weather or whatever it was. I also have an 04 F-150. Maybe do a cam phaser job on that in the future, not sure. But we'll see. Anyway, nonetheless, thanks for watching, and share this video with someone who you think might also enjoy it. But yeah, other than that, see you next time. Bye-bye.